All right, Monday morning, work. Actually on vacation. I'm going to do a quick video. I'm actually going to try to make this in less than 2 minutes on what the Second Amendment is and is not. And I've been promoting firearm safety. I've been trying to talk to people about the value of the Second Amendment in Vermont, the Ninth Article, for over a year now, for many reasons. Many reasons. But right now, there's a lot of contention. It's a very tumultuous time in American history. When people are fighting for their state rights, or they're worried that the federal government is going to limit their freedoms when it comes to, in particular, pro-choice. Vermont, I don't know, I'd have to look into it. They passed the harebrained idea that they could change the Constitution to protect women's choice. It just seems completely undemocratic, and I was trying to get people to think about it, but it's their democracy. But they're essentially saying that they're worried that the federal government was going to limit a state right to be able to provide access to health care. And I basically said that it's treason. You can't nullify federal law while receiving a bunch of tax money. What you can do is recede. You have the option to be a free state. And a free state is protected by militia service. It's protected by an inspector general and your governor's executive orders, and your legislative lawmaking. And what can happen is you can deploy the National Guard, and the National Guard can be given to Vermont as an independent republic. And there can be other trade deals set up like that. And I would highly suggest you change the way that government is structured, with limitations on the governor turns and increases with the Supreme Court, kind of the way the federal Constitution is, to have Vermont be an independent entity. But you have to figure out how to support yourself financially and stuff like that. I mean, that's kind of what you can do if you really don't agree with federal oversights, and that's kind of what happens during the Civil War. So it's been a little more longer than 2 minutes. But the Ninth Article of the Second Amendment protects state rights in a lot of different ways. So I told the state government about 6 or 7 months ago when I did my peaceful protest that, like, this is the Ninth Article, and this is my state right to kind of protect, my state rights when we're talking about receding, we're talking about a free state, or my way to influence the legislature if they're writing something in a state or a free state that I don't agree with. And what that was unnecessary violations of conditions of release that result in over a quarter of the prison population being housed. I protested that with a legal owning gun for a reason. I basically said the law that you're writing, the law that you've written with the public inebriate statute, and then the laws that you're enforcing with violations of conditions through policies, are unjust, and they're not helping anybody, so I'm not consenting to those laws. And that's my right as a safe gun owner in the state of Vermont, is to not consent to laws that the legislature is writing, especially when I protest them through a formal grievance process or write a remonstrance or decree like I did. And basically, the issue that I was having was with funding the public inebriate statute, and funding violations of conditions statutes, and funding policies within those statutes, and to enforce those statutes within probation and parole or police or other things like that, the courts. And I have the state right to withhold taxes to influence that. So in Vermont, a lot of more conservative people, or even more Democratic people like me from Chittenden County, voted for Governor Scott because we were worried. We were worried about a veto-proof majority having too much influence in the legislature without a check and balance of two parties. But there's a way to do that. There's a way to put influence or political pressure on a legislature that is heavy Republican or heavy Democrat. And the way to do that is through tax withholdings. So if 1/4, even 1/5 of Vermont stops paying their taxes because they don't agree with the way the legislature is doing business, they can't operate. I mean, if you cut funding to the legislature 25% even, or 20% even, or even 15%, Vermont can't raise to some $8 billion that they have to next year to fund everything that help Vermonters when it comes to our state rights, when it comes to paying our taxes. And that's the Second Amendment in the state of Vermont. It's called the Ninth Article. We have the ability to not consent to laws that we don't find just. We have the ability to cease tax payments and not consent to laws written to raise those taxes. So I'm finding violations unjust, and I'm finding those particular policies within departments or whatever unjust that keep a quarter of the prison population housed and make Vermont a less safe and less good place for everybody, and waste a lot of tax money that could be used to fund something like Planned Parenthood. So the idea is, if there's a federal abortion statute at Heartbeat, and we're worried about that in Vermont, what we can do is we can recede and we can become our independent republic, and we can protect that state right if that's something that's really important to us. Or we can do an underground movement like Support Your Local Grower, where we have midwives that perform safe procedures and are willing to take the charge of growing 95 plants and do up to 3 years. But in the District of Vermont, I know them, so you probably won't do any time if you show them that you're doing it conscientiously, if you show them to care about people, if you show them that you want to change and that you're willing to do supervision. You probably won't do any time at all for growing up to 95 plants or harvesting less than 50 kilos. So if you're performing a safe procedure and there's federal law that says you can't do it past heartbeat and you do it safely before lining the lung and you're an actual professional, like I wrote in my decree, you probably won't get indicted at all. I mean, they definitely wouldn't indict a victim that wanted a safe procedure for them and the child. The state of Vermont wouldn't do that. And if they did, or the District of Vermont wouldn't do that. And if they did that, then they would, make sure you could stay in the community, have access to healthcare and stuff like that. It's just the way we prosecute and work with people that break federal law in the District of Vermont. But you can have an underground movement of basically what our advice. That's if there's a federal, statute prohibiting termination of pregnancy past heartbeat, and you don't want to receive as a state. Or what you can do if there's a state statute prohibiting termination of pregnancy past heartbeat is you can conscientiously object. And I put a 45-minute video or 40-minute video up the other day, but it's difficult for some people to actually want to sit down and listen to that, especially when there's nice memes available. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But the long and short of it is that if you write a decree, if you write a remonstrance like I did, my decree said, this is my professional accreditation. This is why I'm not agreeing with conditions of release. I can do a better job of caring for my clients with policies that I'm suggesting in those departments, with, laws written to help me basically supervise or work with people in the community rather than have them be incarcerated. I can do a better job, and this is why, and statistically this is why. But what I really would like to know is how taxes are allocated by the Speaker of the House so I can stop paying those specific taxes to the public inebriate program. And what I wanted was the legislature to recognize that I was writing a decree to bring to a judge, so when I asked other people to withhold taxes, they weren't charged with state tax evasion. So we could put political pressure on the legislature because they weren't responding to my formal grievances to revise the public inebriate, to reduce the prison population by a quarter, prevent a bunch of fatal overdoses, and help a bunch of people. But if you use that same concept, because I need to know how the public inebriate program was funded, now I've ceased all tax payments, and I'm actually billing the state of Vermont something like hundreds of thousands of dollars to file frivolous paperwork and a bunch of stuff like that. I mean, that's not exactly true. I care and respect about the judicial branch, but they've made their bed. They didn't want to respect my ability to withhold taxes, and now they've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars investigating the fact that I raised my voice. That's just how I advocate. But if you use that same concept, if you write a decree, if you write a remonstrance saying this group of people don't agree with heartbeat in a state, what we can do essentially is perform a safe procedure on behalf of the child. And these are statistics. When the population that we perform safe procedures with past heartbeat, not past lining the lung, give birth, their kids don't have a safe orphanage. This is the quality of life for the child. And that's what I'm saying. I promote a very progressive agenda, a liberal agenda when it comes to criminal justice reform. But I say this is public safety, man. This is tax allocation. If you understand, so the Republican Party agrees with something that's traditionally a Democratic ideal of criminal justice reform by saying, hey, listen, we're saving money, we're keeping the public safe. So in that same token, if you're advocating for performing a safe procedure past heartbeat, what you can say is this is how the child's life is being negatively impacted, when we help the child give birth, when we protect that life at heartbeat. And if you write an actual decree and you give it to your legislature, you have the judicial sign off to say, like, yes, you're not consenting, at least for the Vermont State Constitution, to a statute that you don't feel through formal grievances the legislature is respecting when it comes to termination of pregnancy at heartbeat. You have the ability to conscientiously object. And what that might look like in a state government that values religious freedom and values the life at a heartbeat, would be kind of making criminal statutes surrounding termination of pregnancy past heartbeat for basically gross neglect. So, what that would look like would probably say something that carries a 1 to 3 or 3 to 5 for terminating a pregnancy past heartbeat in a non-safe way, or not even non-safe way. And then you would use that in a non-safe way for most cases. And then if somebody terminated past lining the lung or did a bunch of unsafe procedures, then basically you could do probably something like murder, or involuntary manslaughter, or probably voluntary manslaughter. It's probably what that would be like, and really come down on select individuals like me and Christina Nolan, who I looked up to the time when I was building my resume, to do selects to show the public this is not okay. You can't perform procedures like that. So if you rewind it back, after heartbeat, before lining the lung, you have a 3 to 5, or you have a 1 to 3 about, some type of neglect with the termination of pregnancy with a death resulting. And then we do that with driving, impaired driving in Vermont. And then you have basically past lining the lung or really unsafe procedures, or lots of them, or just a bunch of people, just not something that your state wants with its culture. You have something like voluntary or involuntary manslaughter, or maybe even, murder if you want to do a select, select charge of the sex in a select scenario, premeditated murder. But it is what it is. Like when it comes to that type of stuff, being your state right and your state culture and things like that. But that's how to use the Second Amendment to support your choice, be it your religious freedom and your choice to have your religion respected by your state government, or be it your choice to be able to perform healthcare past heartbeat and explore your sexuality, or value your choice as a woman and feel empowered and feel heard in state government. That's your choice as far as I'm concerned, but I'm just a Vermonter. But that's the value of the Second Amendment. In the Second Amendment gives you the right to defend yourself against tyranny, and that's why I have a legal battle with the state of Vermont over not just recognizing a grievance process, not just recognizing tax withholdings in the Second Amendment, but over what I put on Facebook or how I assemble or how I protest. Because the reason that this is constitutionally sound is we need to prevent ourselves from tyranny in the event that the legislature is writing statutes we don't agree with, or telling the police to enforce statutes we don't agree with, or having the courts enforce statutes we don't agree with, or even bribing people if you control our money like the Speaker of the House does in our structured government. We need to have a way to defend ourselves from tyranny and have the people be heard without someone that's speaking for us. And that way is the Second Amendment as a last resort, defending ourselves with firearms, not instigating, withholding taxes. But before any of that happens, I've been trying to set up basically the free speech and the free assembly and stuff like that. But the prevention of tyranny is our constitutional right, not self-defense from other inhabitants. And it's our constitutional right for a reason. It's what works really well in America, but the Patriots went out of their way to defund the Parliament before things ever became violent in Boston.